Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Wednesday, November 10th, once again starting late. That's not gonna work for me, frankly, in the next few days. I'm gonna have to set an alarm clock or something. But yeah, I'm waking up later and later, which is not directly coordinating to staying up late and recording footage, which is what I need to be doing, if not scheduling things. I literally spent like 7 hours yesterday working on an X-Sense Wi-Fi smoke detector that just would not connect to my Wi-Fi with any kind of security on it at all. And yeah, I was able to get it to work, but then I had to basically turn off all the security on my 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, and then none of my other devices, of which there's too many to try and reprogram, that couldn't connect to it. Theoretically in DDWRT, you should be able to have a separate like guest network, and that's what I was trying to set up, but the guest network for some reason was then breaking the regular network. So yeah, I would say the X-Sense smoke alarm, first of all, is an Alibaba style Tuya style TUYA interconnected device, which I'm not sure that there's enough care put into them. It's a ESP chip, which ESP's Wi-Fi stack is, I think, proprietary in all of their products, and so I could see it potentially having problems with Wi-Fi, if the Wi-Fi is even slightly out of spec. But yeah, I don't know. Right now, maybe I'll work with it again in the next few days and it will just work automatically, but I don't know if I want to go down the route of getting any more. I need to replace all my smoke detectors. I will say the X-Sense as a smoke detector is way smaller than what you normally would get. It is a maybe taller, less flat device, but it is also way smaller, and because of its being way smaller, it works better to just install it on the wall instead of the ceiling, which you can do. You can't get it too low on the wall, but you can get it low enough that shorter people, which you probably should consider shorter people, should be able to reach smoke detectors instead of having to get a step ladder or reach up. Even though I can reach up and grab a smoke detector from the ceiling, it's still kind of a hassle, and it's not just an instantaneous, oh, I can easily go and silence this smoke detector when it works, when it goes off wrongly. So the X-Sense does allow for a smartphone app to silence it, although the X-Sense smoke detector goes into a silence mode when you use the app or press the button for 9 minutes, and there's no way to take it out of silence mode after that. It's just in silence mode for 9 minutes, and then it comes out of it automatically. And they don't document that well. They don't document the Wi-Fi standards, whether it should be WPA, WPA2, TKIP, or AES encryption algorithms. All they say is it's not compatible with 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, and it's not compatible with shared 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, which is kind of a problem. It's not a super problem, but it is kind of annoying, because you have some devices that definitely want you to have the same Wi-Fi, and it doesn't likely seem like you can connect to both and jump between the two seamlessly unless it has the same Wi-Fi SSID name. And then there are some devices that straight up say, no, you need to put like dash 2.4 gigahertz at the end, or dash 5 gigahertz at the end. And I haven't done enough research to find out if maybe Android phones could recognize that, even though the Wi-Fi names are different because of the dash 2.4 dash 5 gigahertz, it can account for that. Let's try Runecraft, I guess, today. Let's see. I guess that would be tournament spell. And that's pretty much all it does, though, is that it's a very low power device that goes into a kind of standby mode unless something goes wrong, and it's only at the point that something goes wrong that it tries to really connect to the servers, which are cloud servers in China, from what my internet logs look like. So the entire app is connecting directly to some server in China, and then directly back to
silence. The dead have no need of words.
Wow, this is louder than normal, this dialogue. So yeah, it connects to some server in China, and then it connects back to like my cell phone app, the Tuya cell phone app, and alerts you. And it has a few notifications and errors it can notify you on, but silence is really the only mode it can be set into. So there is 2 security risks, all of which could be, and all of this could be eliminated if you just got interconnected smoke detectors, maybe from Xsense, maybe from a different company. Xsense does have non-Wi-Fi interconnected smoke detectors that comes with a remote that you can just press and silence at probably somewhere around the 400 megahertz range, as far as a radio remote. And for most people, I think that would be my suggestion. Nobody should spend seven hours trying to connect something to a Wi-Fi. They have 2 different versions of the app that's exactly the same. It's just branding from the looks of it. I imagine the Tuya app might be older and have more negative reviews on it, because there's a decent amount of negative reviews on it, so they just tried to rebrand their name. I mean, it really does feel like it's one of these Chinese companies that's not making a particularly quality product. What I'd really like to see is, I hate to say Kitty, but Kitty is pretty much the de facto creator or rebrander, relabeler of smoke detectors in Walmart. I guess I would want to see something like maybe First Alert. I don't even know all the manufacturers of smoke detectors, but no, in all actuality, I guess I would want to see something like Samsung come in and take a product like this and put a lot more polish on it. I'd also like to see them upgrade so that there's a smoke/CO2 options that look the same in the same package, and I'd like to see them support 5 gigahertz, at least not have it as a hindrance as 5 gigahertz. If you have to label your product to say this will absolutely not work if on a 5 gigahertz network, that's crazy, because any device previously that wouldn't work on a 5 gigahertz network would totally not see the 5 gigahertz network. And even now, I think that would be the case. That if a device really did not work on a 5 gigahertz network, it shouldn't be able to even begin to receive the beacon broadcast signals from your 5 gigahertz network. So that they probably are basically just telling fibs in the instructions, translating something ridiculous. But yeah, I think for most people, just having an interconnected fire smoke detectors is way more beneficial if you even need that much. There is also the idea if you're building a house, if you're just installing things, if you have wired smoke detectors, it's pretty much code for all new constructions to have that third wire of hardwired smoke detectors. That is a much better standard instead of using Wi-Fi, where the Wi-Fi could potentially drop or be blocked. There is a security risk certainly with something connecting to China, that they could reprogram the ESP to get into your network and, I don't know, run VPN. It would be incredibly slow to like run network traffic through a server through China, VPN to your smoke detector, to your Wi-Fi router, and then out to your internet. That is certainly also the argument that it should be in an isolated network connection, where a guest Wi-Fi network, where it's not able to just access every other device. The Wi-Fi version of the Xsense I don't think benefits at all being on the same network with other smoke detectors. I think they all directly connect to a server and don't mesh or talk to each other, which probably would be better if they did talk to each other. I know the ESP chip manufacturers are working on something like that, but I don't think any of that has been really polished well enough. So it's a real good thing that I only got one at this point. I'll try it. I have basically a year until all my smoke detectors are 10 years old at the moment. They're also, all my smoke detectors are just in the wrong places. There's definitely an element there that needs to be addressed, in that every smoke detector that was installed in my house was done probably incredibly cheaply and lazily before I bought and moved into my house. And so the smoke detectors are really in the air gap in the corners of rooms where they shouldn't be, even though they are on the ceiling. They are not anywhere close to the center. They're all right next to each other and right next to a doorway. Where ideally you kind of would want them in the center of your room, even if that would be where a ceiling fan or a ceiling light would be. So you would maybe offset a little bit there. And when you're talking smaller rooms, like a 10 by 10 foot room, if you've got a big fan taking up most of that, or air conditioner vents and things like that taking up your ceiling, there aren't a lot of great places. Even looking in the room I'm in right now, I'm like, yeah, I'd probably end up just putting it maybe a few inches away from a ceiling fan, and the danger there is you reach up to silence a smoke detector and then you bump your arm into a ceiling fan. But that's about all you could do if you want to keep it on the ceiling. There's real benefit to putting it on the wall. Like, put it on the wall, particular wall you're not looking at, and you'd be better off. Yeah, I have a clock in between two windows to the right of me that would be kind of the ideal place to just put a smoke detector right above that. And yeah, the smoke detectors in my hallways are right in front of bedroom doors. And yeah, there definitely is a reason why you would want one in hallways and in bedrooms. In case the bedroom door is closed and there's smoke filling up a hallway, you want as quick of a notification. I would say also the X-Sense, being kind of a low-powered device, unlike more traditional dumb smoke detectors, a little slow to set off. It probably tests it and then waits a second or two and then tests it again before it determines smoke happens, that there is smoke, which if it were any slower, I'd be really concerned about that. The 5 seconds is about the maximum that I would expect any smoke detector to wait before it went off, and I was lighting a candle and blowing it out and then making smoke, and sometimes it would take a while. It's not sampling consistently. It's not a heat detector also. I confirmed that by stupidly setting the smoke detector almost on fire and melting some of the plastic just a little bit, holding it very close to a flame. So it is only a smoke detector, and ideally I think you probably would want a heat and smoke detector combination if you're going for absolute safety.
Wind is a blessing from the gods.
My prayers.
And the lesson I definitely learned, as I'm kind of rambling here because that's what I did most of yesterday, is test the Wi-Fi capabilities on anything like that before you put screws in the wall to install the mounting bracket, because I installed the mounting bracket first and then I tested the Wi-Fi for 7 hours and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be really dumb if there's 2 screws in the wall now. It's not a big deal, but I'd feel especially dumb if 2 screws in the wall are going to just be left there, or 2 holes in the wall will be left there if I send the whole thing back because it doesn't work. There's a lot of home automation stuff that's not ready for prime time. As much as the Ratio 3 in comparison as an irrigation controller I think is great and gives you a lot of options and seems to be working fairly great, it has some Wi-Fi problems where if you mess up your Wi-Fi long enough you have to reset the whole thing. Otherwise it won't retry to connect. The Ecobee 3 is fairly rock solid. It works. But the Wi-Fi controller module, first generation Wi-Fi controller for the Ream water heaters, barely does anything. It lets you set a schedule for just having the water heater change temperatures at different times, which maybe saves you a little bit of gas, but it's probably unnoticeable amount of savings. Maybe lets you make your water heater last a little bit longer, but it's probably an unnoticeable amount of savings there. For the amount of network problems that has, it's not really particularly worth it. There is some fear that one can have, and there's a good reason to have a schedule, a Wi-Fi schedule on the water heater, but it's mostly, hey, is there a significant portion of time where nobody's in the house that you would want to turn it down so it's not wearing out the components more than even wasting electricity? Is there a time in which you want to turn it way up? Because the water heater is supposed to get really hot for a little bit to potentially prevent Legionnaire's disease, which can happen if there's stagnant water. In most cases, I don't think it would happen though. So the fear of Legionnaire's disease is not one that most people even know about, let alone should care about. But yeah, ideally it's like 140, 138, somewhere really high that the water should go up to just kill germs in it for a very brief amount of time. And there really isn't even a feature in the Ream that works for that, and it does just have a considerable amount of
Forever and ever more.
of network trouble. My cheap security camera system that I got was too cheap, and so the network connection sometimes is a little wonky on that. Although recently that hasn't been a problem. More it's just that the software that you use that is also probably connecting to some Chinese server, which let's be honest, almost all of the things are connecting to a Chinese server, or at least the risk is high that it is.
Quartzes come in every shade imaginable.
The ordained hour has arrived.
There is definitely an argument for
So
fixing
pretty.
that.
Crystals, wow.
I installed a video doorbell, and that's not even internet Wi-Fi connected, and there's a good argument for replacing that and upgrading that too.
Who are you calling a lizard? Demonic blades have
But
nothing on
mostly,
my knife.
I'd say it's been more success than failure, and a lot of it has to do with just trying to optimize things and save time, and save money, and that these are semi-rich people solutions where poor people don't have time or money to install automation services. At first, they can't potentially spend $300-400 up front to try and recoup that money over the course of 2 or 3 years later on, and so many people live from that perspective and that mentality that they literally can't even realize that they would save money in the long run. And you only save money if you stick with the same project. So if you become an incredibly addicted gadget buyer, you're constantly replacing things, you're not going to recoup the value. Like having the Nest thermostat first and then switching to the Ecobee
Tears their brains.
probably bit well into the savings.
Okay, that's enough from you. I'll do what I want.
And even at that, though, I would say I've almost certainly paid back and saved more than it cost me to get the Ecobee, which I've found the Ecobee to be
Lightning storm.
a better product than the Google Nest thermostat, which really has not really improved or
Come in every
innovated
shade
or added
imaginable.
anything new since it was acquired, since Nest was acquired by Google.
At last I will be anointed.
My bolts are too fast to see
And the
outside
tableau
these
is working just like perfectly, as far as I can tell. I'm still watching a ton of Get Smart. I'm also playing Opus Magnum, but frankly, it is such a boring game. Having taken an extra 7 hours off from when I last played it, I had kind of just forgotten everything I had done with it. And so, yeah, I didn't even remember a lot of stuff, and so I feel like I barely have anything to say about it. It's a badly designed, in my opinion, macro programming game. I think it was trying to do something different. I looked at Fartronic's releases, and the game after that was Exapunks. The game before that was, I think, one of the games before it was Infinifactory. So I imagine they were trying to trying to find something before that. Arguably, Fartronic should have just made a Shinzen IO 2 with more puzzles instead of trying to make it involve alchemy and change things up. But yeah, there's just no functions. There's literally no programming functions in it. And the interface is bad. It's incredibly unmanageable. There's very little components to manipulate or move. One thing I did think about as far as Opus Magnum is that
The world called,
if
and I answered.
you had created a solution in a previous puzzle, like something that worked really well, a nice layout, a nice collection of code, like something perfect in your mind, or as close to perfect as possible in your mind, you can't copy that solution in whole or in part over to another puzzle. Whereas it would be really, really nice if they had you, say, turn lead into gold in a very early challenge in like the first chapter, and then that became a mechanism and a collection of code that you could then use and would then use in future puzzles automatically. So you were creating the in that case you would be creating the mechanism and the automation, and so you would have to go back to chapter 1 potentially and optimize your mechanism even better if you wanted to. And if you went back to chapter 1 and optimized that mechanism, it would then affect how all of the other future mechanisms were built, and so then you'd have to go back to those future mechanisms and rerun them and see if it still works and see if it runs any more efficiently. And then you could like split up a much longer journey of a game, something where you just got better and better and better, and we have seen that in a few games, not particularly programming puzzle games, but we have seen concepts where you're going for the one perfect run and you just do small sections of that run over and over again, and as you improve that run, it connects completely. Or at least I think that concept has been thrown out there, if it hasn't actually been done. So yeah, I could definitely see the concept like that expanded, and then you would have just like what it would be, an insane programming puzzle at the end. What was that Banjo-Kazooie game was kind of like that, where you could do the impossible level at the end very much at first if you wanted to, but it would be so incredibly difficult that you wouldn't be able to beat it. I think it was called Banjo-Kazooie and the Impossible Layer. That wasn't even a game I was particularly interested in, but take that concept with programming where it's asking something that you couldn't possibly even understand as a concept. Okay, so now this can just evolve for 0 points. Great. But yeah, Opus Magnum doesn't do that. Instead, the most notable thing is they had me create a like jewel out of gold, and since I lowered the resolution on the screen, the jewel itself barely even fit into the playfield. So much of the playfield is like, if you follow my mouse cursor, I would say this much of the screen in here is the actual playfield, whereas everything on the side here is mechanisms until you get to the bottom part, and the bottom part is the programming, and the programming is pretty bad, and this much is just the programming commands that you drag and drop into the programming film strip, and there's not enough room in the programming film strip to do the programming because there's no functions that you could call. If I could use functions, I could optimize the code as far as readability and space efficiency of the actual code way more, but that's just totally a no-go. Like, you can't do anything like that. Anyways, we started late, and I really am just going to end up whining about Opus Magnum if I'm not careful. Binding of Isaac Rebirth, I assume, has update 1.75, localization some more. They've localized the game to now partially support Japanese, Korean, Spanish, German, Russian, and simplified Chinese. Honestly, I don't think you need a ton of language support to play Binding of Isaac anyways, because it's just kind of in the cutscenes that dialogue will happen and in the item descriptive text. If you can get past the item descriptive text, you can pretty much play Binding of Isaac with fairly easily. And if you know what the items already do, which that would be kind of a other additions that most players would be interested in is they've added 3 new items to the boss and chest pools: Glass Eye, Sty, and Mom's Ring. C-section is now functional and obtainable after being unlocked. Bag of Crafting Flip Subtorium can now be found by all characters after being unlocked. Added a birthright effect to all characters that were missing one. Added a description to every tainted character that was missing one in the character selection menu. Added a new level transition / versus screen graphics for Tainted Eden. Added mini-map icons for Tainted poop pickups. Added unique starting room graphics for every character, and added 200 plus new room layouts. That's sounds like a lot, but arguably that may not be that much. It just keeps the game very different every time you play it. Lost health is now visible in the HUD heads-up display. Holy Mantle is now visible next to the player's heart in the heads-up display when active. Updated sprites for Tainted Lazarus, updated sprites for the Thing, Null Begotten Evil Twin, Clot, Blue Boil, and Dookie. Updated sprite. If you don't know what the Binding of Isaac is, this is all gonna just sound like ridiculous edgelord teenager talk, and that's pretty much what the game is. Added sprite for Converter. Fixed the Visage's attack to use a consistent red color scheme. Added unique item costumes to Tainted Lilith's fetus. Slightly tweaked the color of the womb to be easier on the eyes. That would be nice. Updated the graphics for questionmark's only friend and big fan to be more consistent with Boomflies and other variants. And Techstone Tech plus Brimstone lasers now have large and giant variants similar to Brimstone layers. Then there's a whole bunch of gameplay changes that I'll leave for people to read, because I imagine there is a lot that is going to change and tweak. And the thing about Binding of Isaac Rebirth, and at this point Repentance DLC in particular, is that it doesn't particularly even matter if the changes are good or not. The thing is, people love Binding of Isaac, and as long as they love Binding of Isaac, they're playing a ton of it, and they just would love to have more content. Doesn't matter if it's good content, doesn't matter if it's bad content. It kind of sucks if it's really, really bad content, but as long as it's somewhat acceptable and different, that's all they really have to do. Now, arguably, there is the pigeonhole of Binding of Isaac, in that
My quarry won't escape.
either
This one's for my family.
Team Nicholas has to make more Binding of Isaac and put all the resources into that, and they can just never really be allowed to make anything different, or at some point they're going to have to go quiet and stop making changes and improvements to Binding of Isaac. Same is true for Edmund McMillan as kind of the figurehead and main person behind Binding of Isaac. That there's definitely a issue there where anything he's tried to do in the past has
How about a prank?
led to not that much success compared to Binding of Isaac, which has been a resounding success. It's much like Notch in making Minecraft. Minecraft, the biggest popular game ever, still, I imagine. Notch has basically made nothing else, or released nothing else to the public. Arguably, I think he said he was gonna just make games for himself and not put anything out there, which that might be the case. Also, he might just be living it up, semi-retired as a millionaire, which fair enough too. G4 put out this picture. This is this fancy sign that I saw before, which I was saying when I talked about this several weeks ago, like nearly a month or two ago, when I saw the sign, is that this is where G4 really needed to start. Was, hey, we've spent a couple $1,000s on a fancy sign. We are in what looks like a big office. Now, when I looked at it, I saw these stairs and I thought, oh, this is one of these big open floor plan California offices. Upon further inspection, if you look at the ceiling, there's kind of more like a Walmart feel. Like this is a big, not open floor plan office, but a big factory building, or yeah, I guess that would be the best way to describe it, as a kind of factory building that is.
I'll be back for round 2.
Interesting. We'll see how that works. Yeah. A giant, like, open factory that they've put some stairs up here potentially so that you could have cameras and angles here, or they've just built a second floor. There's some kind of weird statue here that might be something from like old G4 that makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if this actually is mostly a storage facility. When you look at this ground, this is basically poured concrete that, like most poured concrete, has not been done particularly well, and they've just done a cheap job of laminating it. You can see there's a carpet here, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is close to the entrance, which would make sense for the sign. And it looks like there's stairs back here, and there's steps up this way, steps up this way. But yeah, you have like big speakers that would only really make sense if you are in a factory. If this was like a converted factory, some big open area. You see the lighting is just LED or tube bulbs down here. The air conditioning is big and open. What I take from that is it tells me they probably are working on a smaller budget than I first thought, which isn't a good thing, because I think for G4 to really succeed as a relaunch needed a lot more budget. And bringing in a WWE celebrity or past celebrity, which is about as which is who I think this is, and the completionist, who is a YouTube celebrity, is probably not bringing in enough people. I hate to suggest it, but they probably should have brought in somebody like the Nerdist guy, who is now in a position where he's potentially going to be always successful because he's married into an incredibly successful family. Bring him in, make him the CEO, make him in charge. Allegations against him regardless. I mean, if anything, it would make a lot of sense to bring in Chris Hardwick, that's the nurse guy, so that he could just create a new collection of people he worked with and abandon all the people who abandoned him when his ex-girlfriend tried to Me Too him and kind of failed miserably at that.
I'll get it right this time.
The hunt has only begun.
But yeah, you bring in the Nerdist guy.
Too bad.
I think you try to bring in the video game nerd if you can. Like that's going to be the real question: is can you get YouTubers
Why is this so hard?
who might make your channel succeed more?
This is weird.
Can you bring them in? Can you integrate them? I'm not even sure the completionist really is going to integrate well in this new ragtag group of people. You can do a bit of enhance here, TV enhance. Since this is a reflective image, you can see that there's someone here taking the picture, and then there's some kind of weird half moon semicircle thing here, which probably is a light reflector blocking the sun because it looks incredibly bright in the background. Looks like there might be another light reflector here. So we can see in the background there's like cars parked, big areas. There's a building over here. There's trees. There's power lines. Probably try and enhance on this building, although I'm not sure it'd be unique enough, and I imagine this location is not particularly that secret anyways. But yeah, this does show very, very tall windows letting in a lot of sunlight, which again implies to me this was some kind of factory at some point, a big open area. And all right, do this,
And those acorns flying out of the woods.
do this,
Now's a chance for a grand slam.
and I guess do this,
Play. Now's a chance for a grand slam.
and then
My domain reaches to the end of the skies.
yeah. What I'd be much more interested in, and I've spent way too much time talking about that image, what I'd be much more interested in though is seeing their stages and how those are getting built and set up.
Divine judgment
You're
awaits.
pretty good.
Much like how Giant Bomb is now completely changing what it is and stopping to be really a video game channel, which we'll talk about that in a brief second. G4 has that name around it, so what we want to see is sets that look like Attack of the Show and X-Play, real TV sets with like actual design and depiction. We don't want to see people in front of their camera, in front of their computer streaming. That you could potentially try and create new shows around that, but I think you're then competing against something that's highly unlikely to succeed, because you just need that bigger budget and that bigger polish. Otherwise your game is going to the G4 product is going to feel cheap, and it felt cutesy cheap in the old days, but I don't know if we can justify it feeling cheap in a reboot. It's got to really be outstanding, and that probably will eventually just bankrupt G4 as they have this desire to look more professional and take it to the next step and make it look something closer to like a CNN 24-hour newsroom, or a big budget TV production, compared to it just looking like a YouTube channel, which is what G4's reboot has looked like so far. It's just been mostly reboots, mostly people talking in the cameras. To talk about Giant Bomb and to move on, because I'm spent way too much time around that. Ben Brode is leaving the Bombcast, but moving his questions and answers, sending questions, what is it called? The questions dump truck segment of Giant Bomb. He's moving that to its own separate podcast, which, I mean, at a certain point, I'm wondering if the Bombcast will have to stay around, otherwise people would probably leave in droves. But Ben Brode is effectively again stopping to work with the Bombcast, probably because he's not playing games so much, and just getting his own separate thing, which I don't know why you wouldn't have just given him his own separate thing after a week of coming back to the Giant Bomb. And they're effectively replacing him with a rotating chair concept, which means just random people. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Bombcast becomes this: every week there is some new friend of Giant Bomb showing up, and potentially every week that new friend is announcing some new small content product that Giant Bomb is putting under its banner that has nothing to do with video games. Even though Giant Bomb has kind of consistently had podcasts that were spin-off podcasts that didn't have so much to do with video games, they are now, they have now tipped the scales where there are more non-video game podcasts than video game podcasts. And yeah, I can't help but assume that they are just slowly boiling the frog, and at some point the Bombcast is not even going to be talking about video games at all. I mean, they barely talk about video games even now, but it does seem like that's what's going on. Also, the Extra Life stream happens, and Giant Bomb kind of let Nextlander be part of the Giant Bomb, I guess, fan group for Extra Life stream, but the actual people that still work at Giant Bomb didn't really seem like they were doing much of the Extra Life streaming. So yeah, maybe their new owner didn't even see the benefit in doing a charity stream, or maybe they did stream and I just paid so little attention to it that I didn't know anything about it. But I do follow Giant Bomb on YouTube, and if they hadn't put out even a short announcement video, that definitely says a lot. So yeah, at some point I need to jump off the sinking ship that is Giant Bomb, but I'm, I guess, enjoying the train wreck. There's been no new news that I've heard of as far as the movie podcast video series that they got tricked into greenlighting, I guess is the best way to describe it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was just quietly killed. and we never hear anything more about it. Let's talk about video game news now. It's been an hour or 50 minutes. Call of Duty data miners have found more evidence on the new Vanguard operatives and an Attack on Titan crossover. We had pretty much already talked about that, so check that out. The Pokemon Company is marking its 25th anniversary with a $25,000 Crystal Pikachu. A smaller item for $400. You'd be kind of insane to buy either one of these. What sucks about something like this is
Nice marksmanship.
I mean, these look nice and all, but $400 is still way too expensive for what looks like is made out of glass. I'd pay maybe $100 for one of these. But what sucks about things like this in particular is the fact that this is going to have to end up in some private collector's hands, and the only way it would end up in something like the National Video Game Museum or any of the video game museums collection is if they get it donated to them, because while this is an interesting piece to put into a collection, it's also not super relevant, and it's also way too expensive for a museum to spend $25,000 to buy. And if you were to look at just kind of like a standard publicly funded museum, I don't know if the Smithsonian is publicly funded or not. Let's go with the New York Metropolis Museum. I think that one's publicly funded. If the New York Met spent $25,000 of public funds to buy something that was pretty much built and made just to rip off collectors, whether the collectors are museums or private collectors, I don't think people would be particularly happy. Generally, when museums do acquire things, people are mostly happy because A, they don't probably really know how much they spent on it, if they did spend anything, and it's probably a lot cheaper. Yeah. I don't think there's really that much of a difference, though. I mean, you're going to... it's not Picardy, it's Baccarat, a French crystal specialist. I mean, you have an artist making something, and then I imagine he'll sell it at an auction. But yeah, from my perspective, and my perspective is kind of a weirdly set in stone perspective, this is kind of a great example of where artists should just be on universal basic income like everyone else, and then anybody could make a crystal product that probably does not cost anywhere close to $25,000 to actually make, and then they could just donate it to a charity, so that all of society could benefit from it, instead of rich people hiding it away in their private collections to benefit from it, or buying it to avoid paying taxes. Alright. I do this, and then
A
this.
withered life can no longer tell of its plight. You shall
And then
fall.
this. Yeah. It does seem like a weird system when you take a step out, that you're having people do something that is effectively priceless as art, and priceless goes both ways, as in it's not worth $25,000 and it's worth a lot more than $25,000, and art should benefit society and culture as much as possible in my book, and the only way that happens is if it ends up on public display somewhere, and it gets incredibly difficult for something to end up on public display if it's that expensive.
Mankind's hatred is a curse.
And I imagine the false prices, the overly inflated prices of the overly inflated prices of art will eventually bottom out. Alright, well, that's probably as good as that's gonna get. 9 defense to my leader. I can get 3 more fairies. Moving on, Miyamoto wants the next 3D Mario game to further expand the series. The success of Odyssey convinced the designer that 3D games can appeal to a wide audience. Which I assume when they mean expand further here, probably means bigger area, but it might also mean that they want a bigger fan base, which at a certain point I can't imagine that you're going to get much of a larger fan base, as everybody already at this point is playing Nintendo games that will play Nintendo games.
Woodland Fortress at 12 o'clock.
Okay.
The uncharted desert awaits. The hunt has only begun. I'm ready for more. What do we have here?
Hit this one. Hit that one. Yeah. Here's a full quote. Recently, people of all generations have been enjoying the 3D Mario game Super Mario Odyssey, released in 2017. So from 3D Mario going forward, we want to expand further in new ways. Which just, I mean, this is a great example of a news article that is literally saying nothing. Because yes, they were going to make more Mario games. Yes, they were going to try new things. You expand further in can mean anything, really. Let's see.
Hey, let's play. We doing this?
These wheels turn for him.
Okay.
Come at me, well.
The miasma pervades all.
I won't let you get away.
We'll waste an evolve here to try and protect this. Next Video Games Chronicle article. A game called The Tomorrow Children, which was shut down fairly quickly after it was released, and frankly I don't think too many people even cared about it, is going to return. This is because Q Games, probably for a song and a dance, recovered the rights from Sony. It was a PS4 exclusive free-to-play game. The thing. Let's see, why is this not blurry? That's because this is Video Game Chronicles. Video streamer.
Nice marksmanship.
It's weird visuals and kind of a weird gameplay mechanic. And I just don't think that bringing it back is really gonna work that well. It's kind of a Minecraft thing, but not really. It definitely had a lot of like Soviet Russia feel to it. It was definitely designed to look that way. But yeah, it coming back and trying again is an interesting thought, certainly, but it is also probably a great example of a game that shouldn't be bothered to try to be brought back. Video Games Chronicle says Walmart will be selling more PS5 consoles online today. I think we're going to end up reporting on this. I saw an article somewhere that said the prices of things have jumped like 6% or something on average. Things are just incredibly expensive, and honestly, if there's any way you can opt out of buying Christmas presents this Christmas season, I would heavily recommend it. I'd always heavily recommend the idea of getting away from just rampant consumerism and the installation of greed amongst yourself and your children. Now is kind of a great year to not buy any presents. And say, I don't know how you tell a kid that without traumatizing them, or you buy very little presents, or make presents, which is something people totally don't do. The thing with Christmas, of course, is it is certainly weaponizing a parent's love for their kids and a kid's desire for more entertainment. Like, if I was gonna randomly pick something for kids for Christmas presents, my suggestion this year would be not toys. Definitely toys are always cheap and kind of easily bored of. Get them a smart TV. Get them a subscription to like Disney Plus. Like Disney Plus's subscription price is not going to go up for a while. It'll give them year-round entertainment, and yeah, that would probably be about the best deal. And if you already have a TV, don't even get the smart TV because chip shortages and electronics and such. Or if they can just watch it on their phone, that probably would be your best bet. Kind of everything is at a shortage though, so if you're gonna try and get them, like even books, it would probably be fairly difficult to get specific books. You can do a great job getting used books or a library card for a kid. Outdoor sports, definitely. Like, it might be a little bit more expensive, but you probably will get a large return for soccer balls, basketballs, baseballs, things like that. Like, even if you're putting up a volleyball set in your backyard or a badminton set, things like that. Those are not particularly that expensive, or they've always been particularly expensive. A lot of promises and IOUs certainly could happen where you just say, hey, we're gonna take you to soccer this entire summer or soccer season, and we're gonna do a lot more outdoor things, frisbee golf things. I should have hit that one, that was dumb. All of that would be better. Pack of cards, as much as people don't play solitaire or poker or anything, getting more to physical things. I saw some slick sales for some Hasbro board games for like $5, which is like the first time I've ever seen a Hasbro board game at a reasonable price. Get your kids into like gardening or knitting or things like that. Cheaper, old-fashioned things. Like, really push to it. My fear, and this is something certainly that could have happened at any point, any year. My fear, though, is that a lot of parents get embarrassed, or frankly are just bad parents in the first place, and they don't have the money to buy that much for their kids in the first place, and so then they come from that perspective in the back of their mind, and then they seek out reasons to punish the child or blame the child because they can't afford gifts. The most traumatic, unfair thing a parent could do would be to realize they have no money or everything's too expensive, and then make up a excuse to say Christmas is canceled. Kind of in that same venue, there was a forum on Reddit I just casually glanced at where like they're going through some kind of custody dispute. This parent and this other parent, I assume, and one of the parents used in court, or tried to use in court, the fact that one person does not celebrate Christmas as a reason to say that they were not the best person to get custody. And custody disputes, of course, get very nasty very fast. And that is, once again, just a great example where if you are in a custody dispute, you're going to probably have to pay through the nose to have as many good lawyers as you possibly can. Getting back to video game news, though. I would say for Christmas, video games, though, not a lot to really suggest here. I did see that, like, GameStop is giving 50% extra in-store credit for controller being traded in, so a lot of people with like Joy-Con drift probably could sneak one in. The employees are supposed to check for like Joy-Con drift, but they tend not to care because they're underpaid and under trained. So if you have a major Joy-Con drift and you want to trade one set of Joy-Cons in and then get the store credit and then come back another day and buy some new Joy-Cons, or arguably what you'd want to do is bring it into the store to trade in the Joy-Cons with Joy-Con drifts, then order new Joy-Cons to be delivered to your house through GameStop. That way you don't run into the risk of the same person you traded it into being the person that you buy the new Joy-Cons from. Or if you're willing for a different trade, you could potentially trade in the standard Joy-Cons and get like a Pro controller instead. New. But that's about the biggest GameStop deal I've seen. And yeah, there's a couple games for free on Steam that Slick Deals talked about yesterday. They may still be available on Steam. One of them was, I think, KEO was the name of it, and the other was Beholder. So a couple free games on Steam, but that's about it. it would be really crazy to suggest buying a computer right now. But installing Steam, if you have a decent computer, might be interesting. Also, Linus Tech Tips, which I occasionally watch their videos more often lately, is trying to do gaming on Steam and having a horrible
My quarry won't escape that
process
easy.
just installing they're trying to do gaming on Linux, not Steam. They're trying to do Steam gaming on Linux without using Steam OS, and he's having a pretty horrible experience, which
How about a crank?
I can't disagree with him. As much as Linux is great if you want total control and maybe even better security, if you want to run a lightweight operating system, if you want to run a server, Linux is great for all of those things, but it has never been great for gaming. Like, particularly if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, which you pretty much need to do good gaming even now. So yeah, I could never recommend somebody use Linux for gaming unless it's a very custom Steam OS with the compatibility layer set up. Maybe
Forest be at peace.
at some point in the future that compatibility layer will start to really account for something, but at the moment it doesn't make sense.
I'll eat their troops for
It doesn't even make sense to try and stream from one PC to another PC that has Linux installed, stream from a Windows PC to a Linux PC.
The uncharted desert awaits.
Let's see.
Stay away. They're picking on me.
Let's go ahead and just play this.
Farewell.
But yeah. And there definitely is a question about the Steam Deck, which has been delayed. I'm bearing the lead here, certainly. There's a real question about how much the Steam Deck could really allow for actual gaming to happen, and how high resolution the gaming would be on the Steam Deck. This one,
A withered life can no longer tell of its plight.
and then
Mankind's hatred is a curse.
that. And then we've
The
just
hunt
got a
has
whole
only
bunch of
begun.
Bane
End their
characters.
suffering.
You shall fall.
We will greet the new
Wither.
dawn.
Time to retreat.
It would make a lot more sense to have a second PC install Windows XP Service Pack 3 on it than it would make sense to have a second PC have Linux on it for gaming. Or even a PC that has different boot partitions and older hardware to play like actual Windows and Windows 95 and DOS games. That would make a little bit more sense. I'm particularly in no hurry to move to Windows 11. If anything, there's an argument to go back to Windows Windows 7 or Vista. Let's see this one,
Let's play.
and then this one,
Let's play.
and then this one.
Let's play.
retreat!
Didn't end my turn. Oh, darn it. Well, it's not that big of a deal. It kind of sucks. I didn't play quite right. Moving on with video game news. Uncharted 4 for PC and PS5 has been rated, suggesting a release as soon.
We're done here.
My heart is replete, thanks to them.
The thing, though, with Uncharted 4 is I really would prefer to play Uncharted 1, 2, and 3
Stop it.
first before just jumping into the fourth game. If there was a feeling that there was more that was going to happen, or a kind of soft reboot or hard reboot was going to happen as far as the Uncharted series, then I could kind of see the argument of
I won't let you get away.
playing like Uncharted 5, but
So sparkly. Yeah.
that's not how it feels.
Time to retreat!
I also am kind of thinking about maybe putting in a lot of time and playing, finally getting around to playing
Nice marksmanship.
Fallout 3, even though somebody gifted me Fallout 4. I think I probably would just rush through Fallout 1 and 2. And probably not play it too much at all. I suspect I might very well just even look up a speed run for Fallout 1 and 2 and just kind of accelerate the experience as much as possible. Because I definitely would want to avoid the grinding as much as possible in the Fallout series. Moving on, FIFA 22 Title Update 3 is rolling out, addressing a career mode progression issue. You can read this article on Video Games Chronicle
My quarry
if you're
won't escape
interested.
that easy.
Twitch users are already streaming Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shiny Pearl 10 days before release, and Nintendo and the Pokemon Company is taking things down. I can't really even blame the Pokemon Company for doing like DMCAs and takedowns of games that aren't even out yet, because yeah, that is pretty unfair to any other streamer out there who is not finding ways to break street date or cheat. But yeah. See, there was a story in 2019 where they subpoenaed the identities of Discord and 4chan users who leaked, and two men were later ordered to pay $150,000 each for leaking images. Which, yeah, seems a little harsh. Like, at a certain point, I think there probably should be no financial penalty at all for leaking or violating copyright at all. Like, I think there is an argument that information should be free and people can DMCA and have things taken down, but once there's a financial incentive that you'll get this payout if you win a court case against people, or you'll gain the monetization through the YouTube Content ID system, which is not a legal precedence, but it is weird to say the least. I still need one more victory. That's annoying. I was hoping that that was going to be the last one for the fairies, and but yeah, once money gets involved, it becomes a much more corrupt process than it probably should be. If all anybody could do is take down things through DMCAs,
My quarry
then
won't escape that easy.
that would be,
Time to get started.
I think, the better system. Although then maybe people would just take down things willy-nilly regardless, but they're already doing that, so that wouldn't really change the status quo. Moving on, Bethesda has confirmed that Fallout plans exist, Fallout 5 plans, but it's in the queue behind Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6, which they're still trying to release Starfield. Queue is a funny word when you see it typed out. Queue. this is dangerously what Microsoft probably does not want is Todd Howard coming out and talking and saying anything. I imagine they need him to say a few things, but I also would not be surprised if Todd Howard gets silenced fairly quickly in the next couple of years and or leaves the company. He also plays down the chances of the game being developed externally, which I don't think Microsoft would agree with that. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if Microsoft hands a lot of the development of Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, and Fallout 5 all to other teams, other businesses they've acquired to make sure these products actually come out anywhere close to being on time, and frankly just put some fresh life into it. Particularly with Starfield. Like, Starfield can be anything, so there's no reason for Starfield to feel exactly like a sci-fi version of Fallout 4 and Skyrim. Like, there's no reason for it to be really even on the same engine, look anything like it, feel like anything like it. It's an opportunity to do things new and different and really improve where Bethesda in the past, when its own separate company and not owned by Microsoft, had failed fairly miserably at ever innovating and only iterating and making small changes. And also, like, Todd Howard says a lot of things. Certainly there's a danger of him saying a lot of things that just won't happen. Let's see, Video Games Chronicle says Amazon is offering 3 for the price of 2 on major new game releases in the USA. Call of Duty Vanguard, Far Cry 6, Guardians of Galaxy, and Deathloop. The thing here, I think, is, are you going to be able to buy these games specifically for consoles, or are these specifically on the Amazon Game Store? Yeah, I think these are probably only on the Amazon Game Store. So they're doing a slight sale. In a lot of ways, Amazon Prime pulled a really smart move, I would say, by moving Prime Day several months ahead of Black Friday, getting people to buy a bunch of stuff on Prime Day. And I'm definitely in that position where I bought quite a bit on Prime Day, and now I'm at like the point where I'm like, no, I don't think I would buy things on Black Friday. So if there was any competition from like Walmart or Newegg or Best Buy or any other storefront, Barnes & Noble even, like they got their money and they got it early. So I'm heavily leaning towards the idea of basically buying nothing this Christmas season. I may opt to do like a Lego sale and a Steam sale. One of the 3 big Steam sales, I'll buy some games, but I'm not looking to buy a whole bunch of extra things, even if they do go on sale. And particularly for me, video games is for video games, I have plenty of video games and not enough time to play them. If anything, I wish I could spend money to buy more time and energy. But it's a lot harder to do that. That's usually hiring people. This one. And then this one.
Fortress at 12 o'clock.
And I could return this, certainly. I don't know if it's worth it. Two, three. Hmm.
Quit while you're ahead, loser! Don't forget to snag some merch! Don't hurt me!
Well, that looks like that'll work fairly nicely. Video Games Chronicle says Bethesda wishes it could release Elder Scrolls 6 sooner than planned, but quote, wants to get it right. Todd Howard admits the lengthy wait between mainline series entries is not ideal. They still really don't have anything to even show of Elder Scrolls 6. It's just, this is the general landscape you can expect to see. What's crazy is you almost have to have dragons exist in Elder Scrolls 6, and it's potentially not going to make a lot of sense that there are dragons in Elder Scrolls.
You want to hunt? Be my guest.
Thanks so much for that axe.
Alright, well. One.
Hey, let's play.
Two.
Hey, let's play.
Three.
Ow.
And return. Video Games Chronicles has a feature here. Hands-on Elden Ring is more than just an open world Dark Souls. Okay, whatever.
Check this out.
I can't really care about Elden Ring at this point. I need to see some real reviews. I think it may be an open world MOBA anyway, so it's probably a game I'm not even gonna play. The first official GTA truly gameplay footage compares the definitive editions and originals. I think we had already kind of seen this. As far as comparing visuals, it does seem like they have polished the visuals quite a bit. Clash. Evolve everything. Do 6 damage. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2,
Let's play.
3.
Let's play. Let my melody set your wings free. Yeah. Oh.
Should I play some safety?
Yeah.
That was almost amusing.
Video Games Chronicle says the GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition, which music tracks are missing. They put out a whole list here
Act is full.
as far as music.
A precious life deserves a precious death. Okay, this one's all me. I only deliver the most
So
luxurious
Vice City
sex.
missing in previous releases in Definitive Edition are these songs. Billie Jean for Michael Jackson, I could see why that would be missing for a couple different reasons, but I imagine something like this is more about negotiating than cancel culture and removing Michael Jackson, but it could be both. I don't think there's really any real cancel culture against Ozzy Osbourne, for instance, and Bark at the Moon, and doubt Herbie Hancock has done anything. Maybe he has, I don't know. In the music industry I don't follow, so it is possible they all have good reasons to be canceled.
All I need's an opening and you're toast.
Well met, and farewell.
This is the end.
Sorry, but the time for games is over.
I I paid so much for that box.
Do
One
that.
helping of this and it's 99 for you.
And then Vice City has some missing from Rockstar list game songs. Like at a certain point, yeah, I don't think too many people are gonna care about
Got your message loud
this
and
many
clear.
songs missing. It's a decent amount, but it's probably replaced with either new songs or there's still plenty of songs. This is kind of a great example. The GTA series in particular is a great example of a series that should just have Spotify integration with a much smaller custom soundtrack. And honestly, if people are going to GTA because of the music, then they probably are pretty bad gamers in the first place, or GTA as a game is not as good as it seems like it is, if that's the case.
Stop it.
Video Games Chronicle says Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl gets a 3 GB day one update and a new trailer. Which I guess maybe that means... Nope, it's still 9 days before the 19th and the official release date. Looks like I'm going to once again lose. Let's see, Battlefield 2042 Season 1 kicks off in 2022 with a specialist and new battle pass. Check this article out if you're interested, from Video Games Chronicles. Forza Horizon 5 is Xbox Game Studios' biggest ever launch day. Says the game has already sold 4.5 million, or the game already has 4.5 million players, which I'm wondering if that's because it came with like Xbox Game Pass, or if it's just a matter of people having Games Pass. People got it for cheaper. Yeah, I bet this really is more a case that people didn't have a lot of other things they could even buy. It's not like there's been high competition in releases these days. Everybody's pushing things back or delaying things or just canceling things outright. Let's see. PlayStation Direct's online store has launched in the UK. UK PlayStation users can now buy games and accessories directly from Sony, which arguably that should have happened years ago. That's weird. Elden Ring test keys are selling for hundreds of dollars on eBay, which is just to say people are listing them for hundreds of dollars on eBay, and all of these may very well and highly likely are scams that don't even have test keys. So I wouldn't recommend anybody buying that, and I doubt anybody will. Video Game Chronicles says it has sources that EA has greenlit a Fight Night revival, but it is on pause, which is to say nothing. This is another Video Games Chronicle article where it seems like they're just desperate to make any news story, so they're basically reporting on nonsense. Green lighting a project and then putting it on pause means, in theory, you're willing to make a game, but in practicality you're not willing to make it.
Marksmanship.
I can green light that I will spend $1 million and then put it on pause, and it won't put that thought on pause, and that doesn't mean anything. That if anything reflects just the stupidity of the corporate structure and the management structure, that you could potentially have a meeting where somebody says, let's green light this, but then let's also vote to pause it in the same meeting or in 2 different meetings. I wouldn't be surprised if at least 20 people were paid at least 2 hours of their salary to go into meetings like that to say basically nothing. Video Games Chronicle, this is the big news everybody's talking about, although in all fairness, I don't know why anybody really is talking about it. It is a great example of how they got a lot of suckers hyped to pre-order a game hardware device in the Steam Deck. And they tried to hype it up and hype it up. And now anybody who has pre-ordered the Steam Deck is probably going to have a negative association with the product before they've even received it because of supply chain issues, which, I mean, even if there weren't supply chain issues, I heavily suspected this was going to be delayed. Valve is not a hardware company. Valve has never been good at being a hardware company. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this gets pushed back way more than 2 months when all is said and done into... I wouldn't be surprised if it gets pushed back to Christmas of 2022. Honestly. That's totally believable. And at that point, the hardware being kind of locked down will be potentially a little bit older and a little bit slower. It's not like it was great hardware in the first place. A Steam Deck 2 is definitely going to be a better device to consider than the first Steam Deck. It's almost certainly going to it's almost certainly going to be a rough launch, and we can only hope that maybe it will last. That they'll learn from their rough launch and make a better product later. It's still probably close to 4 years, or at least 3 years until the next Nintendo Switch. So as long as they can get the Steam Deck out before the Switch, I think they'd be fine, unless Microsoft and Sony just manage to create something like the Steam Deck very quickly. It would make a lot of sense for Microsoft to make something like the Steam Deck instead.
Consultations available for just a single coin.
The ordained hour has arrived.
Making all this stack.
Talk more later.
Like, we're building up all of the stack. 2 damage to all enemies.
You made me angry.
Moving on, the Game Awards 2021 is expected to feature 40 to 50 titles. I guess the Game Awards for this year hasn't happened. I thought it had. The number of new games is set to be announced is probably in the double digits. It's happening December 9th. Okay, whatever. Like, the Game Awards will happen. There will be a few announcements. It kind of won't even matter that much because anything announced is just highly likely to be delayed anyways.
I don't need a gun, not when I have my words.
It's hard to be positive, certainly, when you have this just so much as far as delays happening.
You might die from this.
Yeah. Let's see. Video Game Chronicles has basically the same article several times here. GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition music, the confirmed radio tracks. They basically are publishing the same thing several times. Details Definitive Edition enhancements. Let's see. The latest Call of Duty Vanguard update wipes mid-level saves but fixes code redemption issues. Let's see. Clockwork Aquaria has been... What is this? This is a Gamatsu listing? Why is this? Why does Gamatsu look different now? Gamatsu. Stretching out the image for some reason. Is now going with a different look. Yeah, and if anything, I think Gamatsu is just tweaking their website, and that would certainly explain why their website has looked a little weirder lately. And so I'll probably have to make the choice to improve it.
A glimpse into the future is only the
And
beginning.
I'll have to go back and delete some of the and change some of the ad blocking, but I'll do that later. Let's for now just live with this. So Clockwork Aquario is a game that's coming out in fall of 2021. Atlas has developed Project Pin. The Atlas developed Project Pin has been rated in Australia. It's rated 15 MA 15 plus for strong violence and sexualized imagery and in-game purchases. What is Project Pin though? It's listed as a multi-platformer media type.
Nothing personal. It's
Yeah.
just
I guess we don't know anything about Project Pin yet.
This is my fate after all.
Together, Mr.
We already talked about
to spare or slay. It's
few
all
games
the same to me.
reacquiring or acquiring the rights to Tomorrow Children, and they're rebuilding for the release.
Demonic blades have
I
nothing on my
assume Q Games
Look at all this kindling!
was the people who made the game in the first place. It would be very weird for some other developer or publisher to try to buy out a game. I mean, if people really were going to get into that business of buying out other people's games, boy, would that be crazy. And that would lead to a very weird Cold War where all of a sudden people are spending a lot of money to potentially own big ticket items, big ticket products.
I'll make your taste buds quiver.
Didn't quite play right there. Didn't quite play right there.
At last I will be anointed.
Yeah, I'm gonna lose. I could have gone one more turn.
That's too bad.
Let's see. We already talked about Lies of P alpha gameplay teaser trailer, I think, from Gamatsu. Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1 prologue trailer. I think we may have already talked about that. Some really old things getting retweeted. Rhythm Runner Hextech Mayhem, a League of Legends story, has been announced for Switch and PC. This is another game that has League of Legends attached to it, but really does not feel like anything that actually is League of Legends like. Seems very much like League of Legends has just sold their name and their brand, and they're going to create name confusion and brand confusion and just try to make as much money from it and drag its name through the mud. Which at a certain point, maybe League of Legends is dead, so it doesn't matter. Or at least maybe it's dead in the eyes of, I think it's NetEase that owns League of Legends. Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep and Wonderland's one-shot adventure is now available as a standalone title, which is interesting because I thought it always was a standalone title.
My quarry won't escape that easy.
Oh, this is actually the Borderlands 2 Tiny Tina Assault on Dragon's Keep. And they have just straight up spun it out for $10 as its own product. What you can probably guess here, and I think most people can probably guess here, is there is an idea here to get rid of Borderlands or de-emphasize Borderlands completely and make Tiny Tina the focus. Which is a weird way to go about it, certainly, but I could see a thought where you put a final bit of DLC in Borderlands, and in that final bit of DLC, Borderlands 3, you kill off pretty much all the characters, or you finish the story of pretty much all the vault hunters and characters, and you finish the story of going after vaults in general, and you make Tiny Tina your main next generation character. Now, arguably for some, I think Tiny Tina is much like the Wesley Crusher of the next generation, and I wouldn't be surprised if not everybody really likes her as a character or could stand her as your main character in Borderlands games going forward. Maybe what they're trying to do is buy themselves some time so Borderlands 4 can be a lot better than Borderlands 3, because Borderlands 3 arguably came out too early. The pre-sequel, I think, also oversaturated the market. But I wouldn't be surprised if, after hanging on to Handsome Jack and kind of trying to retroactively make Handsome Jack the main bad guy of all the Borderlands games, I wouldn't be surprised if they are reacting from that same mentality and now trying to make everything about Tiny Tina. It doesn't not make sense, though, certainly. If you're playing the new Tiny Tina game, playing the DLC that was before that would make some sense. But you almost would have to have included that for free in the new Tiny Tina game, and they didn't. So that puts you in a weird position. And you are definitely creating some confusion in that now there are two games that start Tiny Tina that are going to be out at around the same time. Somebody retweeted a whole collection of Jiffy GIFs, I guess, of GTA, which, okay, I guess that's an attempt at advertising. This is kind of surprising. Jump Force digital sales are going to end on February 7th, 2022. The online service is going to end in August of 24. Jump Force was never really particularly well received, or because it wasn't particularly well made. This is kind of a great example, though, of a Japanese company such as Shonen Jump just abandoning it, or Bandai Namco just abandoning it, when really it should just be around forever. I can't help but assume that what happened here is some stupid Japanese negotiation where Shonen Force, Shonen Jump licensed their characters to Bandai Namco for a very short time, and then was expecting Bandai Namco to just re-up the license and pay even more, because that's what constantly happens, I think, in the minds of Japanese companies, is that you'll come back and you'll pay even more for the license a second time. That seems to be the level of the insanity that happens with Japanese anime when it's tried to be licensed. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's more success around anime these days, as far as jumping from like Crunchyroll to Netflix or Amazon Prime or some other services, where they are potentially negotiating better deals each time. What this mostly does for me is just make me feel happy that I didn't buy this game. There is also a Monkey Day Leafy game, one or two of them from Bandai Namco that were pretty bad. One Piece Games is the name of the anime manga. And I'm not upset that I didn't buy that either, because clearly these games are going to be poorly supported by Bandai Namco, and that is kind of in line with Bandai Namco's, that they do just fairly consistently
You want to hunt? Be my guest.
they kind of fairly consistently
Mankind's hatred.
fail to make good anime-based video games. Bandai Namco does. I do want to play the Dragon Ball games, and I don't think Dragon Ball games are Bandai Namco. Even if they are, I think Dragon Ball just has such a bigger fan base in general. Whereas Jump Force in particular, sure, in Japan you may know what Shonen Jump is, and you may know exactly what has come out of Shonen Jump over the decades, or the years, maybe not decades. But as a Westerner, I mean, I can say One Piece I think is in Shonen Jump, and Dragon Ball at one time was in Shonen Jump. I think Bleach,
The world calls.
I don't know if Death Note was. I kind of don't think so.
Of the fairies.
But once you start getting away from that and getting into more of the obscure anime characters, I may recognize the anime characters, but I wouldn't know them directly as a Shonen Jump character, nor would I have really any desire to see them fight each other in a fighting game. If anything, Jump Force was the canary in the coal mine for the idea of creating something like Smash Brothers without the Nintendo character license and the money behind it to license other characters. I wouldn't even be surprised if it turns out that all the Jump Force characters end up getting licensed to some game like Smash Brothers, maybe not Smash Brothers, but maybe the Nickelodeon Smash Brothers clone or some other clone. Moving on, Gematsu has the Famitsu review scores for issue 1719 with exactly one game, Illmatic Envelope Swap and Redurg Swag for Switch getting 31 out of 40, which, man, at some point here, we are dangerously getting close to an entire issue coming out with no game being scored because nothing came out. Although we're already at that point, really, because you take one look at the screenshot and you know that this is a fairly B tier, C tier game that they reviewed because they had nothing else to review. They didn't want to break tradition and have no reviews. And at a certain point, I think desperation is going to have to settle in, and they're going to have to think about they're going to potentially have to think about just reviewing old games. Megatone Musashi Anime versus game comparison, and V Navigator's Haruko's 1-point overview hack and slash trailers are available on Gematsu. That feels like that is 2 games. See, I'm not sure that there was originally even an announcement that there was going to be an anime based on the game. Let's see, looking at this definitely looks like an anime, probably more of a kid's anime, probably not one that is even particularly that good. And then you have mechs and CG animations, and then when you look at the real game, it's live 2D visual novel stuff. that's gonna happen. And boy, it's probably a dumb idea to make comparisons to an anime when you're releasing something that's gonna have visual novel style animations. And then this one, again, everything's blurred at this point. Looks almost like the same game, but I think it might not be. These could easily be different parts of the same game. I would think they were, since they're the same article. But I could be wrong. Let's see. Let's see. Chokin Rambu Warriors. Singo Muramasa has a trailer. This is a game I've not heard anything about so far. Let's not go full screen. Well, it looks like a fighting game. One of these Warriors games where you're fighting hundreds of enemies. There might be a sales point of a long-haired pink anime guy and going that more theme as far as visuals while doing a Warriors game. But at the core of it, I think you constantly run into the problem of there just not being a really good reason to play any of the Warriors games. Kind of fail miserably.
Try calculations set. Ready to summon.
Corpses come in every shade imaginable.
Okay. Do I want to rush and save, or do I want to evolve?
The ordained hour has arrived.
Oh my gosh, so wow.
Return to the earth.
Let's see. Project Buramato pre-alpha gameplay trailer. Another game I haven't heard of. Seems like we're starting to get announcements for new games. This might be a game that was teased, but you do run into this problem where the teasers before the teasers tend to look so different that you can't even keep in your mind that one game is the same game. And sometimes they even change the name, so yeah, I don't feel like I've seen this. This looks like a kind of colorful JRPG open world game. There might be something to it, or it might just be kind of nothing. It's probably one of those games that has a slightly high chance of being just straight up canceled because it's so ambitious and so expensive. I just looked at the chat for the first time today, which that was bad.
The journey continues.
It's been so quiet on the chat lately that I haven't even been paying attention. Alright, we only need 4 ranked match victories, which might be a little bit easier than it sounds. Because now we can just play whatever we want, and we can just move over to the Haven decks that tend to work. Gametsu has Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl trailer, details, artwork, Ran Maness Park, mythical Pokemon, save data bonuses. What are the save data bonuses?
All you know?
That's the only thing that would interest me. You befriend a mythical Pokemon as a perk for linking with Pokemon Sword, Shield, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, or Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. Let's see. If you have Sword and Shield, you also get Jirachi. If you have Let's Go Pikachu, you get the Pokemon Mew as a companion. Wow. So, still doing those kind of tie-in things, which I'm sure parents will love to find out that the brand new Brilliant Diamond Shiny Pearl games, which are remakes of old games, now want you to buy other games. So I guess they are still trying to somewhat promote Sword and Shield. Let's see. Pokemon Legends Arceus detailed screenshots and in-game save data bonuses are also mentioned. So Sword and Shield also needed for that. And Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee needed for that. Seems like you get companions or cosmetic things though, so it may not be as big of a deal as it might seem at first. And it may be very well a case that all you need to do is borrow those games, make a small save file, and then never play them. I think we've already talked about this. Cotton Rock and Roll is coming to the West as Cotton Fantasy this winter. And the Cotton series must be way more popular than I think it was. Or it must be way more popular in Japan in particular.
Your shining faith will carry you home.
A game called Elex, ELEX2, is launching March 1st in 2022. Do they even have a trailer? Or are they just showing off the collector's edition?
I have to stop standing in peace.
I don't recognize a game called Elex, though.
Dim light.
Like, it looks like kind of a Crisis clone from the looks of these collectibles, but I could totally be wrong. It's tagged as an open world action RPG. Which, yeah, that's weird. That feels very, very weird that they'd have a game, have a sequel come out, and it is so unremarkable to me that I didn't even know it existed. Gamatsu has the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Anniversary Edition official trailer. Like, what could possibly be in a trailer for such an old game? Yeah, I really do have a big concern about Elder Scrolls 6 potentially not having dragons in it. I don't see any way you have a good game without dragons being able to be respawned and used.
Smiles are the best medicine.
Yeah. I think you're going to have to just assume that even though the Dragonborn would have stopped the crisis that was causing the dragons to come back alive, that they are now just going to be alive permanently. Or that there's just a ton of dragons in general. I imagine Elder Scrolls 6 is going to take place at least 100 years past the events of Skyrim, and yet there will be no technological improvement, really. It'll still be a fantasy world. I'm gonna do this and this and this.
The time for perennial play has come.
Let's see. Gamatsu said it's November 11th, 2006, where 15 years ago, Sony Entertainment released the PlayStation 3, which is to say, actually today is November 11th, or tomorrow is November 11th. Japan is ahead of us. 2021, and it has been 15 years since 2006 when the PlayStation 3 was released. Which, yeah, that does say that the PlayStation that is sitting across my room, PlayStation 3 I have that I haven't used in years, it's pretty long in the tooth. Which, yeah, I have no interest in collecting them, so at a certain point I might just, if I'm not going to spend the extra project time to hack the PlayStation 3 to run like emulators, I should consider donating it to somebody else. But I'm keeping it as a Blu-ray player, but at this point, a 15-year-old Blu-ray player, in which I haven't even watched a Blu-ray in a very long time, is kind of pointless.
I envy you.
Gamatsu has the Elden Ring closed network test hands-on previews and gameplay, which I really don't care anything about how it's going to look in the closed network test, so just wait for the game to actually come out. Gamatsu has the same story. Game Awards 2021 teases the biggest lineup yet of world premieres and announced with 40 to 50 games. That number, I imagine, is just going to go up and up as they lower their standards. There was an event called Thunderfall World 2021, which I guess was announcements for titles like Curse to Golf, Fire Girl, Hack and Splash Rescue, Gunk, Planet of Lana, Source of Madness, Tinkertown, and White Shadows, all games I don't recognize. And this looks like this is a full-on 20-minute stream that has been archived. Oh yeah, this Fire Girl was one that did look interesting to me. And yeah, a lot of these games could be good, certainly. But kind of weird to have your own separate event that is really just highlighting. Looks like there's a full motion video game also in the works. There's the guy who played Luke in Star Wars. So I don't know if that really was a full motion video game or not. If anything, that feels like this is the first attempt. Thunderful World is an attempt for a very small publisher to try and have their own Nintendo Direct style event. And I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of fails pretty miserably.
100% string and 0% fluff.
Gamatsu says the third-person action-adventure game Wavetale has been announced for consoles, to PC, and Stadia. Which looks like an interesting art style that is kind of immediately dismissed for a different art style, which still looks interesting. There's a real problem with the way thumbnails are done these days. We have created a situation where it is wholly acceptable to just false advertise with the thumbnails, and that's not just video games, that's pretty much all products. This looks interesting. Honestly, this feels like something that should have been licensed by Disney to be a Moana game. Looks like it's a 3D platforming game with oceans, maybe something like even a Zelda game. Seems to be probably in some kind of post-apocalyptic world run by robots now. In a lot of ways it looks like there was another game where it was a post-apocalyptic flooded world, and there was very little to actually do in the game, unfortunately. All you were doing was climbing to a few specific spaces, collecting a few specific collectibles, and that was the entire story. There was never any fighting. There's never any conflict.
Too late. Everything.
It was very pretty. I'll give it that much. I can't even remember the name of the game. I think it was something like Submerged or something. What's the name of it?
Fine threads you have. This will be over quick.
Okay.
Watch as I wind and wind.
Moving on, a game called Industria is coming to the PS5, Xbox Series in 2022. It looks like it might be a first-person shooter shooting robots. I guess what I'm doing today, whether I meant to do it or not, is I'm just covering the video game news, and then we'll just see how far I want to go as far as covering games that came out on Steam. I don't feel like there was a ton of games that came out on Steam anyways, so we'll be fairly safe. We want an enhanced puppet, but we don't want to play it now. We don't even have any damage.
Useless puppets get no love.
Another enhanced puppet. We'll evolve in the next turn. Let's see. Gamatsu says the Gunk launches December 16th.
This is how you do
And
fireworks.
yeah, it looks like this is probably a third-person perspective shooter, if I was to guess.
Kaboom! No handiwork needed.
See, this is kind of one of those examples where these should have just been direct press releases instead of trying to have an event. Third-person kind of action-adventure game from the looks of it, not so much a shooter. Sucking up gunk. What I'm not seeing in that trailer, though, is an actual gameplay mechanic, and so I'm slightly concerned by that.
This will be over quick.
Alright. So I'm gonna let you rush. Let's go ahead and attack here. Do this. Evolve this.
Begin.
I like who I am now. Pretty handy after all.
Hit that one.
Gonna have to fix myself up.
Hit that one.
Damn rain.
Go ahead, play that.
Hostile life form detected.
Go ahead and play that.
Hostile life form detected.
Hold still.
And go ahead and attack there. Let's see. Gamatsu says the third-person co-op action-adventure game SteamWorld Headhunter has been announced. Yet another SteamWorld game, although the SteamWorld series in particular seems to be not really connected as far as different SteamWorld games. And the concept of a SteamWorld might be interesting, but I think in several of the SteamWorld games, the visual aspects have been kind of weak. So until this game, then it actually seems like you're fighting robots or seeing robots that would kind of make more sense.
Forget it. I'm done.
I'm just waiting at this point. Just buying myself time.
Verifying access.
I could win here if I got the card I needed, but I don't know if I even have the cards I needed. A game called White Shadows launches December 7th. Has new trailers and screenshots. Looks like another one of these Limbo clones, which Limbo is a fairly old game where it's black and white. There might be an actual visual aspect and shadow and light effect here. And me having to blur out YouTube videos isn't helping this art style at all. There might actually be a game here worth playing. Whereas I've seen a lot of games that kind of look like that, but seem to kind of fail miserably in any other thought.
All of you.
As far as being not worth your time. Just go ahead and kill this.
I'll be back for round 2.
A shoot 'em up like called Swordship has been announced for consoles and PCs, which is an interesting phrase. The question, I guess, would be, how does that really play? Got like this whole kind of low polygon freighter. You're running towards the screen, which I've never really liked games where you run towards the screen, and it seems like you're just avoiding damage all over the place and maybe not even firing backwards. Either that or you're just constantly firing backwards, and so you just have to be in front of somebody to damage it. Yeah, so many of these are going full screen. I guess I'm accidentally double clicking. Draw 2 cards.
Oh, my beloved Nava. Truth and lies.
Let's see.
Hostile life form detected.
How do we want to do this? I think we just
Everything
go
was
ahead
a
and
lie.
Terminating
poison this guy
hostile
and
life
kill him.
forms.
Play this.
Verifying access.
This. Actually, I don't need any. I don't need to play repair mode. We can hold this. There's kind of no reason to play that. Let's see. Komatsu says a Western-inspired Motorvania called Laika.
What you want. This conflict ends
Laika,
now.
Aged Through Blood, has been announced for consoles and PCs. It's a particularly grotesque imagery, certainly. But
Shutting down.
gameplay looks like it is kind of just a Metroidvania game with like more biker sentimentality. Seems like you are on a motorcycle for at least a brief time. I think you're gonna fairly quickly have to get away from being on a motorcycle, otherwise your entire game is going to have to center heavily on the idea of being on a motorcycle, which that seems weird. And looking at these screenshots, I just don't know if I see a real game there, more than I just see a bunch of edgy visuals, which edgy visuals are fine and all, but I would actually like to see a game.
Truth and lies.
I'm sorry.
Everything was a lie.
Sleep.
Please don't tell me that this has already attacked. It has already attacked. Darn it. That was stupid. If I'd evolved that before I had attacked, I would have won faster. Although at this point, all I need to do is 1 more damage and I win. A 3D platformer called Togges, T-O-G-G-E-S, has been announced for consoles and PC. Seems like Gematsu at this point is just saying console instead of listing each console. I think I will follow suit on that idea too. Like, it was always a tongue twister and a hassle to potentially have to list PC, PS5, PS4, Switch, Xbox One, Xbox Series, Stadia. Although I don't know if Stadia really counts as a console. Yeah, I think at this point, saying things are just coming out on console or several consoles will save me a few seconds, and anywhere I can find a few seconds of savings is great. This game I saw a little bit earlier as part of the Thunderful exhibit, and looks fairly weird. I'd have to see some reviews and see how this really played to see if this actually made any sense or not. It kind of feels weird. Okay. Discard a card and draw a card.
Where are you?
Puppet in your hand.
I've got this under control.
Right. Evolve.
Accept harmony.
No one can tie us down.
Probably should have gotten rid of the puppet.
You'll never catch me.
What is this weird feeling?
And if I could just get 1 more damage.
Good guinea pig.
I'll scorch you as black as these
And all he has to
skies.
do is probably evolve something or attack something. Maybe he'll make a mistake.
Good guinea pig.
Power
Nope.
of mortality.
Didn't matter. Totally messed that up. Yeah. Playing the Polocraft is kind of difficult, to say the least. A 3D platformer called Hell Pie has been announced for console and PC. You gather up ingredients for Satan's infamous birthday pie. I'm kind of assuming that this is just a baby and maybe a really distant reference to Trump. Kind of looks like Trump, but not really. So I wouldn't hold that against it too much. As far as what the actual game looks like, seems like it's a 3D platformer, which is not what I was expecting at all. Oh, this is interesting. It's not uncommon for cherubs to be depicted with blonde hair in the past, so there might be a game here. I am a sucker for 3D platformers, although in all fairness, I'm often very disappointed by them. So we'll keep out an eye for that. Gematsu has the same article that the Steam Deck has been delayed to February of 2022. It's full comment here, which I don't think there's any reason to read that. And then Super Meat Boy Forever is coming to mobile in 2022. And maybe part of the reason
There's
why
no one
the
else I'd
Bandai
rather
Namco Jump Force game is being shut down is because Naruto Shippuden is doing a crossover with Fortnite on 11/16. Not that I think Fortnite is particularly that popular at this point. Although I don't know if they negotiated really an exclusive license that Naruto would only show up in Jump Force and nothing else during a certain time period. That'd be kind of crazy. Naruto's popular enough to show up at multiple things as crossovers. Game developer has this article. Activision Blizzard is offering better pay to contractors after worker pressure. Contractors will now be paid over holiday break and have access to sick day policies. Which, better sick day policies. Maybe there's something slightly different from being an independent contractor versus a contractor. I guess there probably is. At a certain point, I guess a contractor may very well just be the equivalent of a salaried employee. The fact that particularly corporations have been able to confuse what an employee is, what a worker is, what the working class is, into these different categories is really just adding fear, uncertainty, and doubt to the mixture so that they can hold down the worker and pay them less. I would have to assume this story is true and that this is just Activision Blizzard trying their very best to get out from being the bad guy and the target of all negative reporting that it has been for the past several months, which, yeah, good luck at that, because it seems like Activision Blizzard deserves every bit of negative press it's getting, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's offering higher pay just to avoid lawsuits. Frankly, you could offer higher pay to contractors and have only one contractor really even affected by that. I wouldn't think that they were hiring a lot of contractors to make games anyways. And yeah, if you were an independent contractor and then they were talking about sick day policies, well, then they're determining the hours that you work, and then you really aren't an independent contractor at that point. But there's a whole bunch of lies and trickery that happens, tricking people into thinking that they are independent contractors, when if you actually sued the company and took them to court, the courts would clearly say, no, you're actually a regular hourly employee. In general, if you're being paid hourly and you're an independent contractor, that can't happen either. And we've seen several court cases where companies claimed people are independent contractors to avoid paying for their health care and their retirement and dental and medical and things like that, life insurance, which in all fairness, corporations shouldn't be paying for any of that, but they have sadly intertwined it into being employed by somebody, so much so that the threat of losing your health care is as big as the threat of losing your job. And the amount you're getting paid is ridiculously low when you should be getting paid a lot more, so that you could individually, people could buy health care and health insurance, even if a lot of people wouldn't. Moving on, game developer has the same article. Todd Howard wants to go deeper with the next Elder Scrolls. Q Games is going to relaunch the Tomorrow Children after securing the IP rights from Sony. Konami has praised its mobile titles as sales rise in the video games division, which I guess that's good news. I don't think it's much of a news piece though. 2K has acquired the Elite 3D and Toria Games to expand its production capabilities. It will allow them to establish a second office for its wholly owned studio, 31st Union. I haven't heard of 31st Union. Let's see.
Is fighting and
Elite
despair all
3D
you
has worked
know?
on notable titles
Have you
such
heard
as
the
Call of Duty
music of
Black
the
Ops,
fairies?
Cold War, Hitman 3, Diablo 2 Resurrected, Cyberpunk 27, and Control. So they either ported them or they were a support company. This is probably also showing how a lot of these big AAA games are not even made by the company that claims they made it, so much as a part of the game was made by that company at most. I wouldn't be surprised if 2K is looking to make a first-person shooter game using a different engine that is not being really made by Gearbox in the Borderlands universe. I always have this theory that at some point they're going to finally pull the trigger and disassociate themselves with Randy Pitchford and probably disassociate themselves completely with Gearbox at that point.
The uncharted desert
Although
waste.
maybe it's not like that. Maybe 2K loves Randy Pitchford and his crazy bro-ish attitude and actions, and they are lockstep just embracing the kind of toxic management culture that Randy Pitchford manages to create. Allied followers in play. So you should play this when there's 4 followers in play, not artifacts or amulets. Which means you probably shouldn't have this in your deck at all. Moving on, Unity is moving to acquire Weta Digital in a $1.63 billion metaverse shaping deal. I am already tired of people saying metaverse, whether that has anything to do with Facebook Meta and their attempt to make a metaverse or not. It seems fairly ridiculous. I guess Weta worked on this Netflix series. What was that? That was from a Western comic book, and Alita Battle Angel, and the Marvel movies with Thanos in them. I want to say the Tomorrow Children, but that's not the name of it. The Umbrella Academy is the name of this Netflix series. Yeah. Yep, Unity and Unreal Engine definitely in a Cold War where they are just trying to acquire as much as possible so that they can build up their software as fast as possible. Moving on, Deep Rock Galactic has topped 3 million sales. I guess good for it. I don't think I really care that much. It's also kind of weird that GameDeveloper.com is talking about that, considering how GameDeveloper.com does not talk about sales of games that often. Unity's revenue jumped 43% in Q3. That's also, I assume, because Unity raised and changed how they build people. So they made a bunch of money, but they also pretty much eliminated a lot of accessibility of their software to smaller independent game developers out there. So in the long run, they may have made themselves money at their own expense, because if 4 or 5 years from now there's considerably fewer Unity made games to the point where everybody's just using Unreal, or another engine comes out and people are using that other engine instead of Unity, that could be a problem, particularly if that's the beginning of a downward spiral where nobody effectively uses Unity anymore. Alright. guess this is our best deal.
Is that how you treat a lady?
GameDeveloper.com says Roblox's bookings and revenues shot up in the last quarter, despite Roblox being down for several days. They have a feature here, finding the balance between old and new in Monkey Ball Mania. This feels like this was an older article, but it seems like it's a new article. Feels like there was similar stories already written, or features already written. Super Monkey Ball not particularly catching people's attention or new players' attention. Valve delayed the Steam Deck launch. No duh. I really wonder if at some point we might hit a point where you could get a Valve Deck case, and in getting just the components and not the internal components, or getting a broken one, you could put a Raspberry Pi Compute Module 5 or something like that inside, and it run nearly as good as the Valve Steam Deck would have run anyways. I think that would really be a little shocking if that was the case, but it might be the case. That probably 4 or 5 years down the road, I imagine we'll start seeing a lot of broken Steam Decks or things you can get on eBay that you could then try and put new components in, which we kind of need that, because there's really not enough room to get like a shell of a Nintendo Switch and try and put components in there, although it's a decent thought to try. And without that, the next portable device which you might try to put components in is the Vita, and I know there's some people working on putting Raspberry Pis in the Vita, but that there's going to be a limited amount of stock of Vita components fairly quickly, since it's been out of production for quite a while now. And yeah, there's nothing else portable you can really put it in. You're not going to put a compute module into like an old tablet or cell phone and get a good gaming experience. Let's just end the turn here. GameDeveloper.com has a featured blog, The Rise of Game Subscription Services and Infinite Browsing Mode. Check this article out. Featured article, featured blog if you're interested. Star Citizen developer Cloud Emporium is going to open a new UK studio. I don't think Star Citizen ever actually finished the game. They hope to create 700 jobs by 2023. Yeah. Then basically the final bit of news we have is just a repeated story. Forza Horizon 5 has the biggest launch of any Xbox Game Studio title in history. And then that is going to leave us with just talking about games that came out, which should have been talking about those for a while now. But we're trying something different, going in more of a linear fashion. And that's probably pretty boring, because that just means we've gone probably 2 hours straight covering video game news without talking about any games that have come out. So, nice experiment on what that would feel like, at least. Honestly, for me, on first thought, it doesn't feel that much different. It just means there was kind of a considerable lack of low-effort asset flip games talked about, and a lack of reporting about the kind of high number of low-effort asset flip games that come out. It's a different perspective on the world. It's a more filtered perspective on the world. Anyways, Forza Horizon 5, mostly positive. I'm going to put it on the follow list just to think about it a little bit more. Fairly expensive. Third-party account, third-party EULA. Doesn't seem like it has Denuvo in it, where I thought it might. Bunch of languages supported with full audio in several languages, and this kind of spattering of different language supports makes me actually believe them. I definitely wouldn't reject covering Forza Horizon 5 just because of what I think is a stupid decision around having American Sign Language signals.
I suppose I've lost some of my edge.
I'd still totally be willing to cover it.
You were done for.
Oh, there's so much. How about a tune?
It's been a while since I played a racing game though, and I think Forza was the one that they removed 4 before they even released 5 because it was delayed. Next we have a game called True Detective Solitaire 2, which just looks like a solitaire game. $2.99, English, French, German, and Russian. Here we have a game called Lame Defenders, which looks like nothing that would interest me. Top-down twin stick shooter. Real-time strategy, English and Czech, that's an odd combination. $3.99, early access, single player only. Here we have Paradise Beach Girls, which looks like it's kind of a rough animation visual novel. This is not detailed enough in this animation style to really interest me, and it looks pretty bad. I mean, at a certain point you're still kind of doing the anime eyes art style, and you're just worse at it when you have these Western type games. $1.19, English only. I mean, if you're gonna try and do something that doesn't look anime, go the full direction and make something that doesn't look like an anime thing.
You're in good hands.
Alright. Yeah, we have a game called Maverda, which looks like it's just a pixely puzzle game. Probably a box puzzle slide game. Yep. $1.19. Allegedly full audio in every language that Steam supports. And support for every language. Here we have a game called Cyber Puzzle Hackrow, which... yeah, it looks like it's probably a mobile game that's been ported. Doesn't look particularly interesting, it's just another box puzzle Sokoban game. $4.99, English, allegedly full audio. Here we have Hidden Motives, the Diamond Rush Collector's Edition, which is just a hidden object game for $13.99, English, allegedly full audio. You can say no to that. Here we have Soul Iron Tail, which looks kind of very rough in the animation. I want to kind of see how it plays before I reject it, but I think there's kind of a high chance that it will be rejected. 5, 3, this one. And this should evolve. And then draw some cards. And then we'll evolve.
Faith is an expense, no. The smiles are not free.
So yeah, this looks like it's a game where you're sliding a lot, the platform from point A to point B, but the animation is just like too rough for its own good.
Are you ready for true combat?
$5.94 English, allegedly full audio. Yeah, we have something called Curators, which looks like it's probably an asset flip museum. We've seen several of these, like it's a museum in VR concepts, but really it's just asset flip garbage. It's free, so I guess the price is right, but then it requires a third-party account for no good reason. English, allegedly full audio. Have to say no to that. Here we have a game called Aeroplane Blaster, which looks like a side-scrolling shooter of no interest. $3.59 English, again allegedly full audio. I'm just gonna have to get rid of the allegedly part here. Here we have another game called Airship Killer. $2.99 English full audio. Yeah, I think we can just win here. You play this, you do 4 damage. You do this. And then I could have potentially evolved that and attacked. Here we have a game called My Singing Monsters Playground, which looks like it's a collection of mini games like a Mario Party. But what's interesting here is while it may not have as many mini games as a Mario Party game should have, it actually looks nicely polished. $35.99, whole bunch of languages. I'm gonna put this one on the follow list, which is to remind you that all the rest of them have not been making it to the follow list. Here we have a game called The Story of Archer, which seems like an archery zombie game. It kind of has an art style to it, even if it is a low polygon art style. Feels like somebody's actually trying something here. 714 English and Russian full audio
I guess you're looking
for both. I'm gonna put this on the follow list. Wouldn't be surprised if actually though it's like 5 minutes of entertainment and everything we're seeing here in the screenshot is the entirety of the game, instead of what you would assume would be rounds and rounds of zombies attacking you. Here we have a game called The Sin Collector Repentantless, which looks like a visual novel of interesting visuals. I wonder if there's some kind of like some kind of book series or something called The Sin Collector that they're trying to promote, because I feel like I've seen something else called The Sin Collector. This is $13.49, which is fairly expensive. English and Polish, which there might be something to that. Here we have Jurassic World Evolution 2 coming out really with no fanfare at all. Seems kind of ridiculous that maybe it had been on consoles and now it's just coming out on PC, but it's a management simulation game. It should have been on PC first. $59.99 to start. De Nouveau DRM. Whole bunch of full audio claims for a whole bunch of languages. Let's put this on the follow list. Now, there is a high chance though I would just never want to play Jurassic World Evolution as a simulation game, regardless of whether it's a Jurassic Park tie-in or not. There is a chance that the visuals will look better compared to your standard simulation game or Zoo Tycoon type game. I guess it's somewhat similar to that also. Here we have a game called Paralily, which looks like an interesting platformer. There might be something here. There might not though, because there's a lot of empty space. We're not seeing enemies really show up. That's where reviews would help us. $2.79 English. Yeah, I could see this being a short game. I could see it being kind of lackluster. Here we have a game called Clunky Hero, which is some kind of Metroidvania game that looks interesting. Having a helmet on your head is funny as your armor. Early access 764, whole bunch of languages. I don't know why a Metroidvania game deserves to be in early access, but that's, I guess, the least complaint I can make at the moment. So we'll see if the reviews can justify a game like that when it comes out of early access. Here we have a game called Winter Warfare Survival, which looks like nothing really, just a first-person shooter, kind of bad heads-up display survival game, sandbox game, $7.49. Here we have a game called Miner Gun Builder, which looks like some kind of mobile game of no real interest, being ported. $5.99 English only. Let's see. play another one of these. Here we have a game on Steam called Fighting Friends, which looks like garbage. Early access, free to play, English, allegedly full audio. Here we have a game called Mimetic Final Life Forms, which might be something here, but I suspect not. Early access, $8.99, English and Hungarian. This is another one of these games that's a little too zoomed out and kind of empty as far as life forms. Here we have Allied and Axis, or Axis and Allies 1942 online, which looks like it's a board game, military simulation game. Can you play it single player? Yes. $11.99, third party accounts. At a certain point, they seem to have changed the verbiage here, where now these accounts now support linking to Steam accounts and third-party EULA, full audio in every language it supports. I'm gonna put this on the follow list. So, I'm not a big fan of military games, but I also won't just outright reject a military game just because, whereas I think a lot of people probably would. And see, now I can see the beginning of the end. So we had so few games even come out that putting all the games that came out at the end didn't hurt us. That would hurt us later on, though. Certainly there will be times where we just have tons of games. This game, Legend of Creolona, is just a JRPG low effort game, $17.99, German only. Don't see a lot of low effort German games. And we have Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep one-shot adventure, which is already mixed at 41% positive. I'm gonna put it on the follow list, but let's see what the reviews are saying. Cash grab, don't buy, feels extremely sluggish and boring, just wasn't the game for me. Too long, didn't read, this game is just get Borderlands 2 on sale with all the DLC. Randy is a piece of ... No, there's no reason you should play this over the Borderlands 2 version. It's pretty much a nasty cash grab, but if you're an achievement hunter like I, then be warned it will be free later. This is the same piece of DLC anyone who owns Borderlands 2 already probably owns. Little research saved me $10. Could have been an add-on like Borderlands 1 Remaster, but nope, trash cash grab. Go buy Borderlands 2 for much more fun, longevity, and a better understanding of who all the characters are rather than this cash grabbing. So it's cash grab, cash grab, cash grab. Oh, speaking of general rage, YouTube has announced that they are going to hide the YouTube dislike numbers, and in the announcement that they announced that they were going to hide the dislike count so that people can't see it other than the creator of the videos. There is 8,000 dislikes when I looked at it compared to 5,000 thumbs ups. So people disliking the announcement. Now, in all fairness, both YouTube content creators have trolled themselves and said, everybody dislike this video, let's see if we can get the dislikes to 10,000. And that was stupid that was a thing. There have been people that have said, let's try and keep the dislikes and likes balanced, which is another scam to just get engagement that content creators have done. And there have probably been a few hate mobs that have just specifically organized and gone to dislike a video. Although on that aspect, I seriously doubt that there's been very many people that take it upon themselves like a job that they would go and dislike a video they've never heard of or watched. And frankly, it would be fairly easy to remove dislikes from videos that don't have any watch time associated with them. Like, at a certain point, you could almost make the argument that people are trying to make block lists for themselves to block things they don't want to see or have suggested to them by the YouTube algorithm. I pay no attention to likes or dislikes on my videos personally, and I think any real content creator doesn't have time to pay attention to that kind of stuff. So hiding it is probably not a big deal. Their justification saying, well, a lot of platforms don't even have a dislike button is a stupid justification, because almost certainly at some point YouTube is going to try and get rid of the dislike button completely. And at a certain point, I can't disagree with the idea of trying to reduce ways to encourage negativity, but you can't also just censor out negativity either, and it's bad consumer advice. YouTube claimed that very few people actually look at the number of dislikes in a video and then don't watch a video, and I think that's probably true. If I've already made it to a video link, I'm gonna watch the video at least for a few seconds. I may not watch it all the way through, particularly if I saw a whole bunch of dislikes, but I think as many people would watch it all the way through to see why people hated it more than to save themselves time. Let's see. Let's go and play this.
You're done for. The earth shall quake with. Not here. Not now.
Next we have a game on Steam called Death Becomes You, a mystery visual novel, which does look like visual novel. It is kind of a different art style, maybe not particularly great. I'm almost willing to excuse some of these Western animators though, because they tend to just really be bad animators anyways. It's $7.64, that's English only. We'll put it on the fall list. I think I probably have hundreds of visual novels on the fall list at this point, that all of which will not prove to be relevant. Here we have a game called Frog Ball Rerolled, which looks uninteresting. $2.99, several languages, claiming full audio in every language they support, while interface and subtitle audio support only for English.
I pray that you will be freed from suffering.
Here we have a game called Saijin, the Cyborg Ninja, which looks like a precision platforming game. It looks kind of nicely animated, but yeah. It's a mouse-based game. I don't think I want to control that, and I don't want to play precision platformers anyways. $9.99, third-party EULA, English, full audio. Yeah, at this point I'm pretty much just rejecting all precision platformers. And we are done with the daily quest, so I'm just going to go to the home here. We have about 20 games to cover. Here we have a game called Woodland Chess, which doesn't really look like chess. It looks instead like some kind of RPG Chinese game that doesn't look terrible and kind of has a darker theme than most Chinese games. It's single player, English, and Chinese. Let's put that on the fall list. Here we have a game called Alone on Mars, which seems like a tower defense game where you're shooting Martian bugs. That's uninteresting. $1.19, English and Russian. Here we have one that's all Chinese characters. Looks like a Chinese cell phone game that's been ported. It's tagged as a real-time strategy. $10.99, Chinese only. The cell phone game I still play, Destiny Child, is going to reset today, so we should get some new content, which that might be nice. Although they tend to just put out new content and it's not much of anything. This game, 890B, looks like it's kind of a point-and-click adventure of no real polish. I'd have to say no to it. $3.99, bunch of languages. The current event that's about to end went pretty badly for me on Destiny Child. I just did not play it enough to get all the rewards, so I'll have to get a skin later. But in general, I am just getting further and further towards the end game, where I have every character at their max level, and I really just need more empty room for more feeder characters that I can level up to get crystals to buy more of the premium characters when they come out. But I'm starting to get quite a backlog in general. Here we have a game called Fructus. If anything I just said made any sense. I'm doing fairly well with the game. I just didn't like the last event. This is 89 cents Fructus. It looks like just a platformer of no interest. Here we have an Asian Chinese game. Looks like it is a real-time strategy. Nope. Real-time strategy / card game is what they're calling it. Early access, free-to-play, Chinese only. Here we have a game called Among Trees, which looks pretty but is mixed. Why is it mixed? That's my question. Other commentators have pointed out that this game was essentially abandoned on the Epic Store over a year ago. No game patches, updates, or comments from the developer. I've refunded this game in Steam until I see this. It's apparently eye porn and ear porn. Seems like it's kind of just a walking simulator. Cash grab. A lot of people upset about these cash grab. Very bare bones, and to say that they're not going to develop any further. I guess we probably will start to see more cases like this. I can just go ahead and remove it from the follow list at this point. Where games come out because the Epic Games Store funded their release or the finishing of those games, and then they 6 months later come out on Steam and they still haven't been finished. This is the problem with the what is the word? Early access concept in general. Is now we potentially are going to have early access games that are not labeled as early access on the Epic Games Store, which doesn't really support that concept, I don't think. And then they're going to try and cash grab more. This game, Starfisher, looks uninteresting. It kind of looks like you're catching sperm in the middle of space. $2.99 English only. Yeah, I don't see how you don't see that as just some kind of sperm instead of a fish. I guess it's supposed to be a fish with a trail of water behind it or a long tail, but that's not really what I see. Here we have a game called Cantana, which looks like it's a nicely polished match 3 game. Yeah, there might be something to this. $5.94 English, German, Russian. I'll put it on the follow list. We'll see if people review it. Here we have a game called Grab Toy, which seems like it's a platform puzzler game. Not too far away from the game Catherine, really, where you're pulling out and pushing in bricks to make a platform to climb up. The only difference here is instead of Catherine being kind of a mature game, this looks like this is trying to be more kid-friendly, which is not a bad idea. The concept of Catherine easily could have been made, cloned and made into a kid-friendly game. This is $3.59 English and Arabic. Here we have Valentine's Day Griddlers, which are just picked across games. $2.99 English, French, German, and Russian. Here we have a game called Shillelagh, which just looks like a low-effort asset flip Quake clone, Doom clone. Yep. $3.99 English, full audio. You have a game called Space Folk City, which doesn't look like anything. Looks like it's a VR game. $24.99 is fairly expensive for VR. English, full audio. Here we have a game called Cool Bit, which looks like it's probably a Flappy Bird, maybe rhythm game. nothing of interest. 239 English only. Here we have a game called Eden New Dawn Free Edition, which looks like nothing. Early access free-to-play MMO, English full audio. Here we have Ship Graveyard Simulator, which... yeah, this feels like an odd job to simulate because I think very few people are simulating or working the job of cutting down a ship and like trying to scrap all the components. There almost certainly, particularly around the Middle East, is this kind of work that is happening where people are trying to scrap the ships in general. But yeah, I don't know if there's really a game here you'd want to play. And at a certain level, it feels like there should just be a place where you could take a ship and melt the whole thing down if you were going to do that, instead of spending so much physical manpower. But I guess manpower is probably cheap in some countries also. But yeah, I feel like you could probably, as crazy and cartoony as this is, I feel like you could probably find an active volcano that is not too far away from sea level in the middle of the ocean, and just sail the ship into the active volcano, and then as it's erupting, have all those metals be melted down and then returned as lava, just a very heavy and refined minerals. Maybe the refinement process would get messed up at that point, but yeah, I wonder if you could just like wait for the lava to cool in the water and then take a chunk of lava and go, all right, we melted a ship, now we've got a chunk of lava, this has saved us a ton of work, now we can just take this lava to a refinery and factory and make new metal components from it. I know in the United States there is a airplane graveyard where a lot of airplanes just get sent and sit because there's not really a plan to recycle or dismantle them. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Banished Sir, which looks just like an RPG Maker garbage game. $2.99 English only. We have about 10 more games. Here we have an Asian game that looks interesting. Unfortunately, I'm fairly certain it doesn't support English. Yep. $5.99 Chinese only. It's a shame. It looks pretty and does look interesting. It may very well just be kind of a walking game where you do nothing else. I don't know if the Chinese government even particularly wants to promote monks of any kind or any religion of any kind. So a Chinese game about a monk, which that's what it looks like, may not be particularly popular or promoted by the Chinese government. Here's a game called There's No Light 616, which looks nicely animated. Looks like it is a top-down twin-stick shooter game. Free to play, that's odd. Several languages. That is because there is an actual game called There's No Light that is coming out, and the 616 is just a demo. Next we have a game called MOF, which looks just like an asset flip first-person shooter, maybe a horror game. We haven't seen any horror games at all today. That's how few games we've looked at. $4.49 English only. Here we have a game called Retox, which looks like maybe a joke game and a troll game. Psychedelic game, psychedelic visual novel. I don't like the animation style though. Like, you gotta be careful if you're gonna do something like that. I could put up with this art style, But this looks fairly rough for no reason, and this face looks pretty awful. 1444, English and Polish. Here we have a game called Forge Squad, which looks like nothing. 1619, English and German. Here we have Time Shifters, which seems weird because I'm confusing it with Time Splitters. Yeah, this is a name confusion game with Time Splitters, which is an old first-person shooter joke game that may have some relevancy where Time Shifters definitely does not. Coming soon, English full audio. Here we have a game called Hormone Wars Tower Defense. I don't know why you'd call it Hormone Wars unless the things you're fighting are hormonal emotions, which I guess maybe they are. $7.49 English and Russian, easily dismissed. Here we have a game called Epic Maze, which is a pretty low effort title, and it does look like it is just an asset flip first person shooter in kind of a weird, like Resident Evil like house. Seems like you control or fight spiders also. 44.99. This is the first game I've ever said that has specifically said just play for less than 2 hours and you can get a free Steam refund, which is true, but nobody has ever advertised that as something that they are promoting or that they like at all. That people have been very silent about that. Here we have a game called Gaslamp Cases, which is just a match 3 game. $5.39 English, French, and German. And then had a couple of Gamatsu articles here. A game called Wanderer launches January 27th, 2022, which Wanderer looks like it's a VR kind of adventure game where you go to different realities. This might finally get to a point where we have a VR game that teleports you to different locations so you can play with different scenes and toys, and it kind of makes sense. And then Big Brain Academy, Brain vs. Brain, has an overview trailer and Japanese TV commercial. I assume this will come over to the Switch at some point in the future for the West. Here we have Blue Reflection Second Life. This came out just as we were wrapping up last recording, and we can see now it is 93% positive of 74 reviews. I'll put it on the fall list. What I did potentially want to see is Blue Reflection 1 listed on Steam? And it would be kind of hard to tell as far as Bandai Namco, because yeah, Fatal Frame in comparison is mixed reviewed still. Yeah, as much as I'd want to play Fatal Frame, if it gets mixed reviewed, there's better things to play. The Atelier series makes a lot more sense to play. Yeah, I don't think Blue Reflection came out to Steam or PC. I think it probably was a PlayStation 4 exclusive, and now it's... Nope. It is out. Okay. So there'd be a lot of relevancy right now to play and purchase this. That being said, it seems like you have a bundle here that is just outfits and not the main game. It's just all DLC, which I could easily skip bath towels and swimsuits and vacation style things. Like, at a certain point, you probably could just get the season pass, and that would be it. And then they're advertising Second Light with bonus. On the main page of Blue Reflection. This game has only been on sale 3 times, as low as $23.99, so yeah, the more niche Japanese games tend not to be on sale, particularly if you're talking Koei Tecmo and some of the Japanese publishers. What is the bonus then? Buy Blue Reflection Second Light with bonus is an early purchase bonus of a summer bikini. So buy it now if you want that bikini, I guess. You can see some of these outfits do show a decent amount of skin as far as the costumes, so they still are kind of selling on sex or lewdness at least. Although probably aren't going to show too much. Then we had a game here that was just all in Asian characters. It looks pretty, looks like a Chinese visual novel, but obviously won't support English. $7.99, Chinese only. And then here we have a game called Squidoku, which is just Sudoku with fish elements and maybe changing the game a little bit. There might be a thought to that. $4.99, English only. I'll put that on the fall list. There are several Sudoku games that I would potentially consider covering on Steam. I don't know if I really want to make footage of me doing Sudoku. I could see replacing something like this with Sudoku, but I think I'd fairly quickly run out of Sudoku puzzles. And at a certain point, I feel like that would be just a middle step to eventually just getting rid of the card playing aspect of these live streams and simply at that point just covering the news and making shorter streams. Alright, now I'm going through each of my Twitter feeds to see if there's any new news that happened. Which, again, we started fairly late, so I suspect the answer to that is no. Not anything that we couldn't just talk about on Friday. Which, yeah, I should stream on Friday. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't. But I do know that I've got a busy side project I'm going to work on Saturday, which hopefully goes well, but has the potential to not go well, which I guess is true for any event or side project. Alright, now I'm going down my main Twitter feed. I could go through more of this, but I have been sitting in this chair too long at 3 hours and 19 cents. Sometimes my chair just gets incredibly uncomfortable, and often it gets incredibly uncomfortable, but sometimes it happens faster than normal. The game Inscription seems like nobody is willing to talk about it and spoil it. And so you're in this kind of weird position where it looks like a game, it looks like it's fairly popular. I don't know though if it isn't just popular amongst mainstream video game journalists and there actually isn't that much game there, or it just isn't that interesting. So I'm a little iffy on that, but I imagine when I actually look at it, on the follow list, it will have enough reviews to tell me to put it on the wish list if I haven't already done that. And then, like, Major Nelson here has this game Alchemist Simulator now being available for Xbox One and Series X and S. And let's see, the Darius Cosmic Collection Arcade for PC launches November 17th according to Gamatsu. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I could talk about the Cotton reboot on Steam and put it down on the follow list, and I could immediately dismiss like Virtual Cop, but we'll just deal with all of that later. I'm not sure I actually would immediately dismiss Virtual Cop. Alright, well, that's going to be it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.